Hello YouTube, this is Justin Game 44 here, and today we are here to review the final episode of the amazing digital circus. And I have to say, this one was different from all the others, in a way. So, let's begin. The episode first begins with the intro, like we got from the very first episode, but it's different. It's basically going through the whole entire circus area where we see Kane and Bubble, but unlike the first version, we don't see them. Where we see the area they were in before they go to the curtain, but both Bubble and Kane are not there. And then, when the curtain unwraps, we get the names calling and everything. And every character we see is now looking scared and frightened as they're being introduced. And at the end, of course, Pawnee, instead of the previous one who got extracted at episode 1. And it slowly drifts away back to the main episode. What's going on now? So that was interesting. Now, Jax is very angry, and everyone else is trying to keep calm. But what happened was, soon everyone eventually realized what the heck was going on, and how come they were all trapped in the circus. When Kinger brought up the fact when he was at the computer, he found out all the brain scans and everything. And everyone realizes, which, honestly, I didn't realize this until later on, but everyone realizes that none of them were ever trapped in the circus to begin with. They were all brain scans of the actual people who they were. And this kind of made them all upset because knowing how their lives were back then, the troubles they were going through with some of them, like Ragatha's abusive mother, and especially Jax, whatever he was going through back at the time. So, apparently, this eventually every character had enough and just kind of broke down in a way. And they all kind of just separated from each other to get some space. Kinger and Pawnee kind of start slowly have a talk and brought up their conversation they once had back in the haunted house episodes ago. Kinger doesn't really remember it though, but the two still have a good talk. And slowly they work together to patch up the circus with all the holes by creating shapes and everything. And we kind of get this montage song and everything. And eventually all the characters except for Jax joins in, and they're all learning to patch up and fix the circus together. But eventually, when the montage is over, everyone is basically up high, hiding from an extracted character. And which I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't really paying attention with my first time watching this. And I was a bit confused for a part of the episode, but then it made me realize I was completely an idiot for not paying attention. But it was Jax. Jax extracted. Now, this was technically a problem I had with this episode. The montage was kind of quick, doing like a song showing the characters slowly coming around to work together, except for Jax. And then it quickly cuts to them all hiding up from an extracted Jax. Which, this was kind of like a big miss point and kind of like a disappointed thing. Because this could truly show how a person slowly transforms into an extracted character. And I'm like, how? I mean, we kind of did see that where Jax's eye, like a couple episodes ago, where it flashes different colors, looking like he was about to extract, but I mean, like the full transformation and everything, we never really truly saw, or any of that. Now, eventually, they all slowly work together, but Pawnee basically does this on her own, where she basically gets Jax, and she's basically able to go into his mind and see what goes on in his head. And eventually, she goes through to see how all he feels about all the other characters. Which, at first sight, I didn't really understand what some of the things, but after looking up with some other people, I realized what they were supposed to mean, how Jax personally felt. One of them, he might have had a crush on Gangle this whole entire time. And I mean, dang. Although we never see how he felt about Truly to how he would felt towards Kinger. That's the only one I'm surprised we got. But eventually we found different parts of his personality, and one of them is behind a locked door who we never see. And during all this time, though, we basically see what actually happens. We basically see flashbacks of Jax's time in the circus. He was best friends with Ribbits and Cosmo the Clown. They actually were all super close, but slowly drifted away because of Jax. This all started because Jax and Ribbit were alone in her bedroom, and Jax opened up about his past, but then after that, he completely closed off from her and wouldn't want to hang out or anything, and it slowly got to Ribbit that ultimately led them to have a fight, and eventually this ultimately led her to be extracted. Now, basically, we learn about Jax's past and eventually why he ran away from those flashbacks in a couple episodes ago. It turns out Jax didn't have really a close relationship with his parents, but he had complicated feelings, and when he finally told something to his mother, she basically got angry, mocked him, and basically eventually hug him. That eventually caused Jax to shove her away, and she didn't got up. Now, he didn't know if she was alright or if she had knocked out or she just couldn't get up or did something more serious happen, but he doesn't know because he quickly ran off. And that explains from those flashbacks we saw. Eventually, he found an abandoned building, which was the company, and that's where the headset was. So now we know how Jax got into the circus. Anyway, Pawnee eventually finds Jax very deep in the mindscape, and the two have a short talk, but eventually everything went wrong, and they separated from the mindscape, and Pawnee was getting corrupted, and Ragatha and all the other characters pull her out away, and slowly they all work together to form a tent, a giant one, and extracted Jax into the tent to calm down, since the darkness seems to calm extracted characters. And after all that, we suddenly got a surprise. We suddenly saw Kane. I'm not gonna lie, I get those names mixed up at times. Kane, who we see in the background, far away, looking at them. Now, at first when I saw this, I thought he was there, but then he teleported away. But then no, I realized what we were seeing then was him there, but then he was having a flashback to how from when he got deleted to how he got to where he is now. Now, apparently Kane basically got deleted, but since he didn't really got deleted, he actually was basically sent to the void, which I guess you can consider was just basically the giant trash can. But eventually, oh my goodness, I'm getting these names mixed up for some reason now. Kane basically started to have wondering why they would do this and everything. And eventually Kane decided to go far, far away until he found basically a place where he could see the outside world, where he basically got into the files of of every character in the digital circus, and found a way to look up their social media, and slowly learning more about them and what's going on in their previous lives. Eventually, Kane came to a realization that everything he was doing, he was irresponsible, and honestly, he realizing why they were afraid of him. And his other half, the blue AI, you could say, he basically finally ripped that out and let it go, making Kane weaker, not as powerful as he was, but he's no longer glitching out anymore. Eventually, because of this, he travels back to the circus, and when he does, he goes to apologize and make amends. And after everything, he shows them a whole entire movie. Well, not really a movie, just a clips of voices of of a voice, basically introducing the characters and their real names of every character in the circus, and who they were and what they are doing now in their lives. Which it turns out everyone in their lives are actually doing very good. And they kind of have a heartwarming talk. And after this, Kane was even willing to accept them as for their real names as well, no longer going by their fake names in the digital circus. But Pawnee decided, you know what, our real selves are out there living their own lives. But here I'm Pawnee, and it's time for me to start living my life here. So they all decide now, making the best they can do, and start enjoying life in the digital circus. And Kane is now joining in on them and actually having fun with them as a part of the group, which was a fun montage. Jax is, though, still extracted, but all the other extracted characters were put into aquarium, and now all the other characters could go watch them. A memorial was made for them as well, and honestly, we basically got everything. It was a nice ending, and at the very end, we see all the digital circus characters in human form of their human selves, all at the bus station, just standing next to each other waiting for the bus to come. And that's the end of that. Okay, I know I might have actually skipped some things and maybe miss out on some details, but I mean, I can only make videos long as 15 minutes. And second, I'm not gonna lie, it's just kind of hard to come out with this, because honestly, I've been lagging on to make this video, and I kind of just been lazy. Just not. But also, it's kind of hard when, just to make something clear, it's hard to make these videos, but it's easier to do them late at night when everyone's asleep, because the TV is usually on, the dogs are barking, and just so many other things. Now, besides all that, what is my opinion about this? Well, to be honest, it felt like the pacing was more slow, where things were being more quiet and more making less jokes in a way, I would say. As it was kind of just like most of the comedy and jokes I say was when we were in Jax's head, when we were seeing the montage of the doors, of how Jax feels about the other characters, and how Jax with his other personalities when Pawnee was talking to them. I think that was most of the comedy right there, really, parts. Other than that, it was basically all the characters when in the beginning were feeling sad and lonely, and kind of coming to a realization that the digital circus damaged and everything. And especially when it came to Kane, I mean, Kane, you could tell they were basically making it slow pace, where Kane was slowly getting to the door to get all these memories and find a way to get into the hub, to the Wi-Fi, to basically find out and search about them in their lives, what they're doing now, the actual real selves, not the brain scans. And eventually, slowly coming back to the circus after having this realization, even having a short talk with the moon. I mean, it was definitely a lot more quiet, if you ask me, with them having those conversations and everything and doing more slow pace. Unlike the other 8 episodes that were had much more things going on, kind of with more jokes in a way. I mean, this episode and the previous 2 definitely did got a lot more serious, if you ask me, but this one definitely did tell, but I could tell why. So, what's my opinion about the Amazing Digital Circus altogether? Honestly, it's kind of weird after watching this episode, because after I was done watching this, the next day I pretty much went to my friend's house and we did a full marathon. And honestly, it felt weird rewatching the whole entire Amazing Digital Circus after knowing that the Digital Circus characters were never trapped, they were just brain scans and copies. Which honestly, back in episode 1, when Pawnee first appeared, her real self just probably took off the headset right there and just continued looking around at the building bending before just leaving. While the brain scan copy was just so confused, like she's so trapped and traumatized. When reality was there was nothing traumatized because she wasn't actually there. She was just a copy, a clone, just like the other characters. But I will say, this was a good series. I might make another episode more about this, but until then, Justin Game 44 signing out. Until then, I'll see you later. Bye!